Whether you're deliberating how to allocate your calories or your hours, deciding how to spend 3 days in London is a stressful first world problem. But this 3-day itinerary is here to help you maximize your time, with a flexible format showcasing sites organized by neighborhood and multiple options for activities, ensuring you have time to do what you actually like. In case you're new here, hi, I'm Christina from happytowander.com. And this channel is all about practical travel tips from someone who's been there, done that. So be sure to like and subscribe if that sounds like your kind of thing. And for a more detailed guide with practical tips like restaurant recommendations and how to get around, be sure to consult the written version of this guide on my website. Now let's start with day 1, which we'll be spending in central London, tackling some of the city's most iconic sites, immortalized by pop culture and generic IKEA wall art all around the world. Now let's kickstart your visit to London properly by indulging in what is possibly the most stunning culinary innovation pioneered by the English: the full English, an indulgent breakfast consisting of thick slabs of bacon, eggs, juicy sausage, baked beans, a tomato and mushroom for health, and plenty of toast or fried bread drenched in butter to soak up every last bit of your tasty heart attack. Some places even add a patty of fried blood, also known as black pudding, for good measure. Yum! A good fry-up is practically religion at this point in England, with entire Facebook groups dedicated to posting and rating each other's full English breakfasts. As such, fry-ups are just as easy to find in London as confused tourists and souvenir shops selling corgi merch. I'd recommend you start your day off by finding a tasty fry-up near your accommodation, because many of the spots near our first stop, Buckingham Palace, are overpriced and disappointing. Now, on that note, the first recommended stop of this itinerary is Buckingham Palace. Specifically for the changing of the guards, a tradition that dates back over 500 years, though it doesn't actually take place every day, so be sure to check the official schedule before you plan around it. Now, the changing of the guards is of course the formal ceremony during which the iconic red-decked soldiers of Buckingham Palace switch out shifts, swapping a new guard in for an old guard. There's choreography, there's music, and it's overall a grand old time, especially when they whip out unexpected hits and modern music. Now, I do have to say it does get very crowded here, so it's best to arrive early or skip it altogether if it doesn't sound like your kind of thing. Luckily, there are plenty of other things to do around here, so that's why for your first morning in London, I recommend you explore Westminster. When it comes to touristy London, this area is like an all-you-can-gram buffet. While synonymous with government affairs, the PM residence 10 Downing Street and Houses of Parliament, for instance, can both be found here. Westminster is also dense with iconic London sites, immortalized over the years by news and popular media. So for this portion of your itinerary, it's time to explore Westminster and all its touristic delights. One of the most efficient ways to do this is by booking a tour. I did a walking tour on my very first trip to London and didn't regret it one bit. But if you're feeling like a strong independent tourist who don't need no guide, then you can DIY your own tour on foot. Here are some sites in addition to Buckingham Palace that you need to make sure you don't miss. There's Westminster Cathedral, St. James Palace and St. James Park, Trafalgar Square, Whitehall, Westminster Abbey, the Houses of Parliament, and of course, Elizabeth Tower and Big Ben. More on these sites a little bit later, but for now, make sure you do walk around and admire them all, at least from the outside. Now, after feeding your phone with photos and filling your eyes with sights, it's your stomach's turn. You do have a packed itinerary today, so a quick lunch on the go is most ideal. If you're starting to feel hungry, now is the time to indulge in yet another English culinary institution, the most miraculous and venerable meal deal. Meal deals are set combos that you can get at a variety of UK chains like Boots and Tesco's. The premise is this: for a small set price, usually less than £5, you get a main, a drink, and a snack. Compared to the eye-gouging prices found elsewhere in London, this is practically free. Little wonder why it is so popular among the office lunch crowd, and yes, in case you're wondering, they do have Facebook groups for rating these too. I'd recommend grabbing a meal deal and sitting down somewhere scenic with plenty of people watching to enjoy and refuel. Not only is it cheap, it's a cultural experience in and of itself. Now it's time for the afternoon's festivities, shamelessly touristy activities. After inhaling your lunch for your first afternoon in London, I'd recommend continuing your tourist streak with 1 or 2 main attractions that pique your interest. As for which ones exactly, that'll depend on what you like. But I'll share some iconic must-dos in a second. From Westminster, you're within a stone's throw of many of London's most beloved tourist attractions. Of course, what would help a lot here though is making sure you have data access. So on that note, this week's video is brought to you by Airlo, my go-to eSIM provider that has options for over 200 countries and regions around the world, including, of course, the UK. If you follow this 3-day London itinerary closely, there are plenty of times where having data will make your life way easier, whether it's searching up transport routes to get from one place to the next, or booking tickets and reserving time slots in advance. And if you're looking for ease, eSIMs offer a great way to get data abroad while avoiding steep roaming fees. For those unfamiliar with them, eSIM stands for Embedded SIM, meaning they are pre-installed on your device and work 100% digitally to connect you with local telecom networks, eliminating the need for those cumbersome physical SIM cards. And getting set up is really easy too. All you have to do is download the Airlo app, and from there you can easily browse and purchase your eSIM of choice. Then you can set it up through following their instructions, and you'll have data access as soon as you land. So if you're ready to try Airlo out, you can scan this QR code for a link to download the app, and use this code right here to get a discount off your first purchase. You can also check out my complete Airlo guide for step-by-step instructions on how to set it all up. So thanks again to Airlo for sponsoring this week's video. Now let's continue with our itinerary and explore some of the top things to see in Westminster. Again, this part of the itinerary is meant for some shameless sightseeing, so go wild. Some free options in the vicinity of Westminster include the National Gallery, which is Western European paintings galore housed in an iconic building on Trafalgar Square. The National Portrait Gallery, yes, they're different, which is the world's first and most extensive gallery dedicated solely to portraits of important people. And Tate Britain, the famous art museum specializing in British art, which is one of 4 Tates in England. Meanwhile, some paid options in the area include the Buckingham Palace staterooms, which are open in the summer and offer a rare chance to take a peek at the interior of Buckingham Palace, the famed swanky digs of the King. There's also the Houses of Parliament, which offers private tours that lets you see the inside of London's Houses of Parliament, site of many a hot political debate and scandal. There's also Westminster Abbey, which is a stunning Gothic church that has been the site of many coronations and royal weddings over its many centuries of existence. You can also hop on a Thames River cruise that lets you experience London from a new perspective. Or you can hop over to the London Transport Museum, a unique museum that showcases the relationship between public transport and the growth of London as we know it today. Alternatively, if you'd be into a fun experience rather than paying for an attraction, some neat experiences you could book include afternoon tea on a double-decker bus or on a Thames River cruise. You can also consider heading up the London Classic, the London Eye, if that's on your bucket list. Though be aware that it is quite pricey, and there are definitely other great views of London that we'll be tackling throughout this itinerary. If you do go though, sunset might be a nice time. If not, then feel free to perch along the Thames for a free view or have a rest before your evening festivities, which will be taking place in Soho. Soho is a neighbourhood best explored after the sun has gone down, with an exciting vibrancy thanks to its status as the entertainment hub of London. It seems only fitting that Soho is a gift brought to the world by infamous king of excess, Henry VIII, who developed the area out of farmland way back in the 16th century. A lot has changed in the centuries since, with Soho wearing multiple hats over the years, from park and aristocratic neighborhood to seedy red light district, and now today, an exciting hub of food, culture, and entertainment. There's 1,000,001 possible ways to spend an evening in Soho. If you're into theater, catching a show on the West End is a must. But there's many more options beyond that. First off, you can explore Covent Garden, a vibrant shopping and entertainment area with tons of restaurants, shops, buskers, and of course, the beautiful and historic Apple Market. Don't miss the colourful Neal's Yard while you're there. You can also check Leicester Square and Piccadilly Circus off your tourist bucket list with a quick look. But honestly, there's no need to spend too much time here as it's mainly tourist traps and souvenir shops. You can also stroll down Carnaby Street, a pedestrianised shopping area famous for being the centre of London fashion in the 60s. These days there's tons of shops, but most importantly, it's beautifully lit at night. You can also check out Chinatown, which is gorgeous at night with its many lanterns, and get some food or dessert. Or nab a bite at Kingly Court, then grab a drink at Cahoots, a vintage train-themed cocktail bar that is really fun. Or enjoy cocktails at the many speakeasies in the area. Of course, while you're here, it'd be rude to not have some dinner. In Soho, you'll find the answer to every craving, catering to a range of price points, so again, be sure to check out the written version of this guide for a suggestion. Though if you want an aesthetically pleasing experience, Circolo Popolare is a popular pick, as well as the Seven Dials Food Market if you're looking for something more casual with a lot of different options. After your evening shenanigans in Soho, it's time to head back for a good night's rest, which you'll definitely need for day 2, as this day is all about the City of London as well as a fun little side quest. Now, London is a city of incredible viewpoints, and while it would take forever to see them all, I do think for the morning of your second day, you should at least squeeze in one. I always recommend hitting up a nice viewpoint in the morning because not only is it just a nice way to start the day and get your bearings, but viewpoints tend to be less busy in the morning as well. Tend to. So, where should you go in the City of London to get amazing views? Option 1 is Sky Garden, which is free but requires booking in advance. Honestly, I would really recommend booking a sunrise ticket here, which includes a hot drink and pastry for only $5.50. This gives you access to the site before it opens to the public, which gives a much more peaceful experience. Another classic if you want a bit more of a sit-down breakfast is Duck and Waffle, a cool spot that's open 24/7 with a relatively affordable breakfast menu and stunning views. Finally, for another free option, there's also the Garden at 120, which is a first-come, first-served viewpoint. They open at 10 and you can bring your own food and drink. Now, after enjoying the views of London from above, it's time to admire London at street level, or river level I guess, with one of my favorite free and touristy, but oh so worthwhile activities, a romanticized stroll along the Thames. Where you begin your stroll will depend on where you've decided to enjoy your morning view, but my personal favorite stretch of the Thames is between Tower Bridge and Millennium Bridge. Keeping in mind that our lunch stop will be Borough Market, I'd recommend walking a Thames-side loop starting from Tower Bridge on the Tower of London side, towards Millennium Bridge, then over the bridge and along the Thames, cutting over to Borough Market just before you hit London Bridge again. Some landmarks to take note of along the way while you follow this route include Tower Bridge, a striking neo-Gothic bridge often mistaken for London Bridge, which was built between 1886 and 1894 and is probably one of the most famous sites in the city, if not the world. There's also the Tower of London, which is a historic castle dating back almost 1,000 years that has served as both a royal residence and prison. Today it houses the crown jewels, but there are some regular folks who live inside too. Another must-see just for name recognition alone is London Bridge, which is hopefully not falling down. This fairly unremarkable bridge is famous mainly for its name and song. Plus, today's concrete/steel iteration dates back only to the 70s, though there has been a bridge on the site for centuries. Again, not super exciting, but if you want to see London Bridge, this is it. If you're up for a quick detour, you can also walk over to the Monument to the Great Fire of London, a 200-foot column with a nice viewing platform that commemorates a terrible 4-day fire in 1666 that destroyed much of London. But it also celebrates the city's reconstruction, so it's not that depressing. Another must-see here is St. Paul's Cathedral, which is an iconic late 17th century cathedral that serves as the mother church of the Diocese of London, featuring a 365-foot dome that is one of the tallest in the world. Gorgeous inside and out, so definitely be sure to stop by. Another must-see is the Millennium Bridge, which is a cool pedestrianized steel bridge that tried to first open up in the year 2000, hence its name, but was promptly shut down as people complained about swaying and instability on opening day. It took 2 years for them to figure it out, but I can now vouch that it is stable and very photogenic. Another cool spot along here is Shakespeare's Globe, a reconstruction of the original Globe Theatre built in 1599, aka the playhouse that Shakespeare wrote many of his plays for, which today hosts tours and, of course, Shakespeare productions. Another cool spot to see is the Tate Modern, a free art museum that showcases modern and contemporary art, but most importantly has a great view from its top floor viewing terrace. Now, if any of these attractions call out to you, now would be a nice time to check them out more thoroughly so you don't have to double back later. But if you're like me and prefer to first get your bearings, then fret not. Today's afternoon activity is, of course, more designated attraction touring time. But first, let's grab lunch. After that lengthy but scenic walk, you've earned your ticket to reckless indulgence. And where better to treat yourself and your freshly ignited endorphins than Borough Market, one of the most famous covered markets in the country. A market on this location dates back as far as 1014, although the off-Instagram structures of today's present market were erected in the mid-19th century. This market is known for its fresh produce and food products, sure, but our mission for the moment is devouring some of the many options for fresh, ready-to-eat goodness. Whether you're craving stinky cheese-filled toasties, world-class Hainanese chicken rice, or a juicy duck confit sandwich, you'll find it here, along with dozens of other worldly options. When at Borough, it pays to be thorough, so I'd recommend doing a few laps beforehand just to get a lay of the land, because I guarantee you'll be wanting to try more than you can fit in your stomach. Just remember to tailor your food consumption level for the next activity you do. It makes sense to eat a big lunch, for instance, if you're hitting up museums and attractions all afternoon. But if you plan on meandering around Camden or Shoreditch, then save some room because both have very vibrant food scenes. Now on that note, let's move on to our afternoon activity. You know the drill. After lunch, we conquer more sightseeing. As with yesterday, there are simply too many possible attractions to conquer in one afternoon, so you'll really have to prioritize and choose what appeals to you most. Now, following that late morning walk, you should have a pretty good idea of the attractions in the area, but I'll provide some ideas on different things you can do, both for free or paid. Some free options within 30 minutes of Borough Market include Tate Modern, again one of London's most famous museums, ideal for fans of modern art and contemporary art, or those who just enjoy making fun of it, and the Mithraeum, an ancient Roman temple uncovered under London during construction in the 1950s. Today, it's open as a free archaeological site and exhibition space, though be sure to book a ticket in advance. Some paid attractions within 30 minutes of Borough Market include the Tower of London, again a historic castle, royal residence, and prison, a must-visit if you love history and want to see the crown jewels. There's also the HMS Belfast, a British Navy ship turned museum with 9 decks to explore, and many exhibitions and displays detailing the ship's history from its official launch in 1936 all the way to its retirement in 1963. There's also the Tower Bridge Walk, where you can experience Tower Bridge from a unique perspective 42 meters above ground with glass floors. And St. Paul's Cathedral, whose spectacular interior is well worth seeing. You can also do a tour at Shakespeare's Globe, a must for fans of the Bard, or stop by the Shard, where you can access the panoramic view from its 72nd floor. Probably skippable, to be honest, if you followed our morning plans of getting a view over breakfast. Very expensive, crowded, and to be honest, I don't think it's worth the price. Of course, during this time, you can also enjoy some experiences and tours instead. There are tons of great ones for every interest, from historic pubs to street art and gin. Alternatively, if you want a break from ultra-touristy things, I would recommend picking a neighborhood to explore out of either Camden or Shoreditch and heading there. If you follow this itinerary closely, you'll be heading to one or the other for the evening. So have a look at the options for activities in each and decide which you'd rather tackle in the afternoon versus the evening. Some ideas for afternoon explorations in and around Camden include exploring Camden Lock Market, admiring Camden's street art scene by going mural hunting, meandering around Regent's Canal, having a picnic at Primrose Hill, all the better if you stay for sunset, or taking a walk through Regent's Park. Ideas for afternoon explorations in and around Shoreditch include visiting all the different cool shops that they have. There's tons of different options. Grabbing a bite and enjoying the vibes at Ely's Yard, a service yard turned oasis for food trucks, shops, and bars. Seeking out some of the area's world-famous murals. Or on the weekends, visiting some of the famous markets that set up here. Like for instance, on Sundays, Shoreditch's famous Brick Lane Sunday Upmarket. Now, having spent the day exploring some of London's most famous tourist hotspots, now it's time to set your sights on London's cool side for the evening. Granted, Camden and Shoreditch are hardly secrets these days, and have become popular tourist destinations in their own right. But I would still recommend that any first-timers in London check out at least one, just to spice up their itinerary. Why should you visit these neighbourhoods in the evening? Well, it's simple. Both have great food scenes, excellent nightlife, and are generally more fun at night, when their many restaurants and bars light up with the post-work crowd. Plus, main sites here tend to stay open later than the conventional tourist attractions in central London, meaning they make sense to do later in the day. So for the evening, I would definitely recommend either heading to Camden or Shoreditch. Out of the two, I would say Shoreditch is probably the more fun option for the evening, just because they have so many restaurants and different places that you can hang out, with some very unique nightlife options that you probably won't find in many other places. A favorite of mine is Bolly Ballerson, which is, as it sounds, a ball pit bar where you get to have some drinks and then frolic in ball pits. Very, very fun. Now, after all that food and excitement, you should probably aim to get another good night's rest, because the prettiest pursuits of our 3 days in London take place tomorrow. All right, we've now made it to the final day of our London 3-day itinerary, so let's make it count. Today, we'll be spending our morning roaming around some of the prettiest parts of London, Notting Hill and South Kensington. Then, following a scenic lunch, we'll spend the rest of the day ticking final items off of our London bucket list. To fuel you up properly for your final day, it feels only right that we start with a cutesy Notting Hill experience. Breakfast somewhere beautiful. For many London fangirls such as myself, Notting Hill is one of the top places to hang out, thanks to its abundance of aesthetic spots, from pastel-colored houses draped in wisteria, to charming cafes and shops on pretty much every corner. Granted, not all of Notting Hill is an Instagram-filtered dream, but much of it is, so why not romanticize it while we can? A very popular Notting Hill spot for coffee and breakfast is Farm Girl Cafe, an Aussie-style brunch spot known for their pretty drinks and fresh, health-conscious food menu tucked away in a small courtyard just off of Portobello Road. But there's honestly loads of other nice options if you just walk around. For morning of day 3, we are focusing on exploring Notting Hill and South Kensington. These two areas are hands down some of the nicest looking in London, and are best explored on foot. I personally think you'll get the most out of the experience if you just bumble around, popping into shops and absorbing the prettiness along the way, like a rabid sponge. But if you need a bit of structure, here are some spots to include on your exploration list. On Saturdays, there's the Portobello Road Market, which is an epic street market where you'll be able to buy pretty much anything. You can also stop by Alice's Antique Shop, as seen in Paddington, which is a pretty antique shop that's well worth a nosy peek. St. Luke's Mews, which is a residential street made famous by Love Actually. It's also really pretty as well, but definitely skippable if you find the idea of mulling around someone's house low-key creepy. Notting Hill Travel Bookshop, as seen in Notting Hill the movie. Lancaster Road, which is a residential street lined with some of the most colourful homes in Notting Hill. And the Churchill Arms, a super pretty pub covered in flowers and greenery, which has a surprisingly tasty Thai restaurant inside. Now on that note, after traipsing around, presumably photographing every second house you see, you might be in need of a little break. Well, it's time for lunch. If the weather is nice, I'd recommend grabbing a takeaway lunch and enjoying it while sitting in Kensington Park or Holland Park. If the weather doesn't allow for this though, there are plenty of sit-down options available too. Again, the written guide here lists out more options, but as I mentioned before, the Churchill Arms does have a really good Thai restaurant, so I can definitely recommend that as an option. Now, after you're all fueled up, it's time for some more shamelessly touristy activities, or possibly a half-day trip. There's a great deal of additional exploration that can be done while you're in this part of London, but being on the west side of the city, you're also quite close to some very popular half-day trips. So let me lay out the options for you. If you feel like staying close to the area, some free options within 30 minutes of Notting Hill Gate Tube Station are the V&A Museum, also known as the world's largest museum of applied arts, decorative arts, and design, and probably my favorite museum of London, with a gorgeous cafe to match. There's also the Natural History Museum, which is an impressive and stunning museum dedicated to natural history with over 80 million items in its collection. Though be warned that it's typically packed with school trips, so avoid it if you fear screaming children. There's also the Science Museum, an interactive museum dedicated to a science theme, with over 15,000 objects on display, again very popular with kids. Or some paid attractions in this neck of the woods include Kensington Palace, a royal residence since the 17th century and today the official digs of Will and Kate. There's also the Museum of Brands, Packaging and Advertising, which is a museum with over 12,000 objects on display showcasing the history of brands. This is a great stop for marketing geeks. Finally, there's the Royal Albert Hall, which is one of the world's most famous and most beautiful concert halls, hosting some of the most famous names on the planet since its opening in 1871. Now, if you don't mind going a bit farther and making a half-day trip out somewhere, then some additional options within an hour and a half of Notting Hill Gate include Kew Gardens, which is a set of gardens, glass houses, and galleries so epic they're a UNESCO World Heritage Site, featuring over 50,000 living plants. There's also Hampton Court Palace, which is the opulent former royal digs of King Henry VIII. The Warner Brothers Studio Leavesden, which is a non-negotiable spot for fans of Harry Potter. These are the studios where they filmed everything. You'll see sets, costumes, props, and you will cry a lot. Book well in advance or you will cry more. There's also Windsor Castle, which is of course the royal residence where the Queen chose to quarantine, so that should say enough about how nice it is. And the Wembley Stadium Tour, one of the most famous stadiums in the world with a capacity so large it can apparently fit 7 billion pints of milk. Who would have thought? Now, for your final evening in this 3-day itinerary, it is time for a special treat or some final explorations. To conclude your 3 days in London, I would advise ending on a high note and booking yourself a nice, memorable experience. Some ideas might be a West End show you've been really looking forward to, dinner at a memorable restaurant, a sunset dinner cruise along the Thames or maybe a sunset picnic, a sunset ride with Prosecco on the London Eye if you haven't done that yet, or if you're looking to maximize your 3 days in London and see as much as possible, you can take this opportunity to check a final neighborhood off your list or possibly revisit a favorite one that you've been to. If you followed this itinerary closely, then here are some nearby neighborhoods you might not have explored thoroughly and ideas on how to spend an evening. For instance, you can go to Mayfair, which is fancy central, where you can do some window shopping on Bond Street, prance through Burlington Arcade, and have dinner at Mercado Mayfair. Or you can head to Paddington, yes, like the bear, and enjoy a peaceful sunset walk around the canals, then have dinner at one of the many canal-side restaurants and bars. Or you can head to Battersea and take a nice sunset stroll while enjoying golden hour on the Coaling Jetty. And if you're lucky enough to be spending more than 3 days in London, then you can still use this itinerary for your first 3 days, then add on a day trip or further neighborhood explorations to round out your adventure. There are tons of day trips that are easily doable with public transportation. Bath, for instance, would be my go-to pick. But if you want convenience and efficiency, there are many private tours departing from London that help you see more in a short amount of time, with tour companies offering options ranging from the picturesque Cotswolds all the way to the beautiful South Coast. Alternatively, you can take the opportunity to explore other neighborhoods and areas in London more thoroughly. Greenwich would be a great choice. This is one of my favorite parts of London, just a bit far out, so it's tough to cram into a 3-day itinerary with everything else. There are tons of really cool attractions there and a fantastic market, so well worth a visit if you have more time. All to say, there's loads to do in London to fill up 3 days, enough even to fill a lifetime. So I hope this guide was helpful in organizing your time. Be sure to like and subscribe if it was, and thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time.